How likely are you to succeed in business? Or more specifically, in your Amway business? Amway Chairman of the Board, J. Van Andel, says it depends on your aptitudes. How do you know if you have the proper aptitudes? Here's Jay to administer your aptitude test for success.
You only have to write down yes or no. You can write it down on the palm of your hand. If you're afraid you're going to flunk the course, then you can wash it off with LOC later on, you see. And they go this way. Number one, write yes or no. Work several different ventures at once. Number two, study the lifestyle of millionaires and emulate them or copy them. Number three, a college education is needed to become rich. Number four, delegate the running of your business to others. Number five, you can make money with money. Number six, work hard and intensively for short periods and then take it easy for long periods. Number seven, take every shortcut to the top that you can find. And number eight, channel every waking thought to your success. Now, you should have 8 answers. If you have written no for the first 7 and yes for the 8th, you pass the course with 100%. If not, let's see why. Number one, work several different ventures at once. The answer is no. I call this the tycoon syndrome. It's a little like the juggler who juggles a whole lot of plates or oranges or balls in the air. And all of a sudden one slips, and then they all slip, and he's lost the whole thing. Multiple ventures, being in several different selling ventures at once, sometimes even work against each other. It's like the story of 2 moving men who were struggling with a great big crate to put it in a doorway. They pushed and they tugged and they pulled, and finally they were exhausted and the crate wouldn't move. Finally the man on the outside said, "Well, I guess we'd better give up. We'll never get this thing in." And the man on the inside said, "Get it in. I thought we were trying to push it out." And that's how it is sometimes when you're doing 2 things. Now, I'm not talking about coming into Amway on a part-time basis, having a regular hourly job somewhere and working your Amway business part-time. I'm talking about, in addition to your Amway business and in addition to the job you may have had when you started in Amway, being in other ventures besides, or being full-time in Amway and working some other ventures along with it. Rich and I tried that one time years ago. When we first got in the Nutrilite business, we thought we were tycoons. And so we thought that we could have several ventures going, and it wasn't too long. We had 3 or 4 or 5 little ventures going, and we thought we were big shots. The only problem was we weren't making any money. In fact, none of the ventures were doing very well because we hadn't learned that you cannot spread yourself that thin. And so we got smart. And one day we took a look at what we were doing and we said, let's take the one thing that does the best for us and put all of our efforts on that. And that was our direct selling venture, selling Nutrilite food supplement. And when we did that and cast out all the others, we began to prosper. And from that time forward, we moved ahead. President Harry Truman once said this. He said, "I studied the lives of great men and famous women and found that those who got to the top were those who single-mindedly did the job that they had in hand with everything they had of energy and enthusiasm and hard work, single-mindedly. Put all of your time into it." How successful have you been? and any other venture outside of Amway. Compare all the others to Amway. If Amway's brought you more wealth and more satisfaction than anything else, then put all your efforts in Amway. Many chemical products, including our own products, sometimes say on the label in the caution clause, caution, don't mix or dilute with other products. I think it's that way with Amway. Use it full strength. Don't mix it or dilute it with other ventures, with other direct selling ventures. Don't be fooled by the line that says, oh, you ought to sell this line of products too, or you ought to come with this organization too. It'll help your Amway business. Other businesses, other direct selling ventures don't help. They only slow you down. When you have a winning horse, ride it. But don't try to ride several horses at once. That's for circus riders, and even they fall off sometimes. Number 2, study the lifestyle of millionaires and copy them. The answer is no. Those who have arrived at their destination can live differently than those who are traveling to get there. Not all millionaires, of course, made it themselves anyway, but going over your head into debt to affect the lifestyle of a wealthy person before you are one is in itself a lie. We got a letter a while ago from some distributors. I'll just call them Jim and Mary. They were told by their sponsor when they came into the business that they had to look successful in order to be successful, and that therefore they should go out and buy a luxury automobile, a new home, expensive clothes, a motor home. They should join the country club, all on credit, of course, because they didn't have that kind of money in order to sponsor successfully. They failed miserably. And they wrote a very embittered letter to us telling us about their sad story. Why did they fail? Because inside they knew that what they were doing was a sham and a lie. On the other hand, Jim and Sharon Jantz, Crown Direct Distributors from Vancouver, Canada, started their business in one room, a little one-room house, with a broken sofa that the springs were coming through the material, with almost nothing in the way of worldly wealth, and still they brought their new prospective distributors there in the beginning because it was the only place they had, and they went on to sponsor more and more and went on to build one of the great distributorships, Crown Direct Distributorship, in the business. They succeeded because the persons that they sponsored knew and believed in the opportunity, and they knew that the Jantzes were honest and were telling the truth because they were not trying to hide anything. They were simply saying, here is where we are, and there is where we and you can be. Years ago, when Rich and I were in the first starting in business, we had a little venture before we started in the direct selling business, in the aviation business. And I remember one day we had a boy who ran our gas truck, and he came to me and said, you know, if you would pay me more, I would work harder. And I thought about that, and I said, you know, it really doesn't work that way. The way it really works is you work harder, and then you get paid more. I think that has to do with earning before spending. Some people are very hard to impress. There's a local citizen whose old buddy from wartime years came to town one day and called on him, and the old buddy had apparently made a fabulous fortune, and he was trying to impress the local citizen. And the local citizen was determined not to be impressed by his wealth. So the old buddy from out of town said, you know, I've got a limousine and I have a chauffeur. Well, old local friend said, so what? So lots of people have limousines and chauffeurs. Oh, but the old buddy from out of town said, you ought to see my house. It's got 50 rooms in it. Well, the local fellow said, you know, I've heard of other people who have houses with 50 rooms. That's not so great. Oh, but he said, I've got an 18-hole golf course with my house. Well, he said, I've heard of houses with 18-hole golf courses. Yeah, but the fellow said, inside the house? Sometimes it's just hard to impress people. Buy and enjoy the rewards of success, of your success in the Amway business as you are able to afford them. One at a time, but not before. You won't become a wealthy person by attempting to buy the emoluments of success and trying to copy how they live before you have arrived. But you can become wealthy by learning and following the work habits of those who rose from the bottom to the top by their own efforts. Number 3, a college education is needed to become rich. I'm sure that most of you wrote no for that, which of course is the right answer. We don't need a college education to be successful in Amway or in other businesses, but you'll be the same in 5 years as you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read. Charles T. Jones, known as Tremendous Jones, made that statement, and I think that's a great one. You'll be the same 5 years from now, except for the people you meet and the books you read. Solomon, 4,000 or more years ago, put it a little differently, but also succinctly. Any enterprise is built by wise planning. It becomes strong through common sense, and it profits wonderfully by keeping abreast of the facts. That's pretty good advice for being over 4,000 years old. And so we learn by doing. We learn from our own experience, and we learn from the experiences of others. And that's why we hold weekly sales meetings. And that's why we read success books and we listen to tape recordings. Some years ago, when Rich and I were actively operating our Amway business, our Amway distributorship, we were first starting, we decided to, in order to make sure that we continued to get good information to be helpful to us, it would be good to have an idea exchange with distributors in other parts of the country, because perhaps they had some ideas we didn't have, and maybe we had some ideas they didn't have, and maybe we could exchange and we could both profit. So we set up a monthly meeting where we would get together and we would swap ideas, and then we, just for fun, had a prize. The best idea of the day would get a prize. We'd all contribute to the prize, and maybe the prize would be a television set or a tape recorder or something of that nature. And so distributors came from all over with their ideas. And we exchanged the ideas. We went home and we profited because we knew that know-how is a guide to the top. Know-how. It does help to learn. A New York socialite came to the salon of Walter Florell, who was known as the Mad Milliner of movie stars and society, and she announced that she needed a hat at once because she had to go to a cocktail party that afternoon. And so Walter took a couple of yards of ribbon and he twisted it around her head and showed her a mirror and said, "There's your hat, madam." Well, she looked in the mirror and she said, "That's wonderful. What a great hat." Well, he said, "That'll be $50, please." Oh, but she said, "That's too much for a couple of yards of ribbon," at which he simply reached to the ribbon, took it all apart again, handed her the ribbon and said, "The ribbon, madam, is free. It's the know-how that you were paying for." Two farmers at a country fair were fascinated by one of these booths where little ping pong balls were bobbing up and down on water jets. And all the customers would come up there and they were offered substantial prizes if they could succeed in taking one of the guns that were provided and shoot one of those balls down. And they couldn't do it. And they kept one after another shooting and shooting, and they couldn't knock those balls down. But finally one fellow came along with his friend. And he pushed his friend aside and said, "Let me do it." Picked up the gun, took one shot, and all the balls went down. He collected his prizes and they walked away. And the friend said, "Well, now, how did you do that?" Well, he said, "It's just in knowing how." He said, "I shot the man who was working the pump." Know-how. Expand your know-how by reading books and by listening to tapes. Some people learn best by reading. They should read books. Some people learn best by listening. They should listen to tapes. I remember back in World War II, I was an aviation cadet at Yale University, and I had a roommate. He didn't read well, but he could listen. I didn't listen well, but I could read. So we agreed that I would read out loud, and that way he could listen and I could read, and we got our studies done that way. And so, a college education is not needed to become rich, but it is necessary to learn from our own experience and from that of others so that we can become experts in that which we are doing. Number 4, delegate the running of your business to others. Now that's a tricky one because at one time I prepared a little talk at seminars called Delegate or Stagnate. It's in our tape recording library today, and I'm sure that some of you have heard it, and you may have thought, well, it says in there to delegate, and therefore the answer to that is yes, and I'm saying that the answer is no, but there's a difference. Delegate the running of your business to others. And my advice in my talk of delegate and stagnate is to delegate that which is non-productive to others, but that you and only you can do that which is the heart of your business, the productive work. John Paul Getty says this. He's known as perhaps one of the richest men in the world, and he says a businessman must run his own business. He cannot expect his employees to think or do as well as he. If they could, they wouldn't be his employees. And that squares with delegate or stagnate. Some time ago, I was coming down the road in the end of town near the Amway plant. One of the local distributors was coming out of the golf course, and I stopped to chat for a moment, and I said, interesting, you play golf often? He said, oh yeah, I play golf all the time. I said, well, how can you do that and be in the Amway business? Oh, he said, I heard your talk, delegate or stagnate, and so I delegated the whole thing, and I'm out there playing golf all the time. Well, he didn't quite get the message, and he wasn't very successful either. There are certain parts of our business that only you can do, recruiting and training and motivating and selling. You can't delegate those. There are other parts of the business, however, that you shouldn't spend your time on. Being a warehouseman, being a janitor, typing, turning the mimeograph, doing the mailing, doing the banking, doing the shipping, things of that nature. Solomon said, better to get the hands dirty and eat than to be too proud to work and starve. Some distributors feel that they are above selling, and some even feel they're above personal recruiting. They've forgotten that not only is our business selling and personal recruiting, but that all business finally boils down to that. Rich and I have chatted about this once in a while. We both are in various boards where we associate with top executives of large companies throughout the United States. And we've been amazed to find that the chairmen and presidents of the largest companies, when they get together, are selling each other their company's wares. I've observed the chief executive of one of our big automotive companies spending time selling the chief executive of a big tractor company on his automobile so he'd buy a car. Well, you'd say, why would he waste his time on that? He sells them by the millions. But he knew that every sale counts, and he was in there selling. Years ago, when Rich and I were beginning the Amway business, we came to the conclusion that if we were going to make it go, we had to spend our time entirely where it counted the most. And we decided to do two things. First of all, to specialize our own time and to devote our time exclusively to selling, and to recruiting and training and motivating. We worked it out. I was going to do the actual recruiting, the interviews, the advertising, and all of that nature. And after I would get people sponsored to become distributors, Rich would pick up and hold the meetings and motivate and train, and we could work on a 1-2 that way. And the second thing we decided to do was hire some part-time help. We hired some high school kids. At the time couldn't afford any more than that, but that was adequate to do the warehousing, the shipping, the odds and ends that were non-productive, so that we could spend our time specializing on that which was going to make the business grow and prosper and not waste our time on other things. So, delegate the running of your business to others? No. But delegate the non-productive parts of your business to others? Yes. Number 5. You can make money with money. Oh, that's a tricky one. Take the money you've made in Amway and play the stock market with it and buy real estate with it and do all sorts of other things. Well, I suppose you could, in a way, say you can make money with money, but the answer to the question is really no, because you can only make money with money when you add time and effort and know-how. And that makes it another business, and that conflicts with my first point, that you only should work one winning venture. So don't get carried away into trying to use your earnings from Amway and setting up other businesses with that. Your Amway business is where you make your money. Put all your efforts there. Don't waste your time and risk losing your investment, your incentive in Amway, by spending time trying to make money with money in fields that you know little about. Someone once said that the only man who makes money following the races is the one who does so with a broom and shovel, and that may be so. Number 6, work hard and intensively for short periods, and then take it easy for a while, for long periods, and then get back to work. The stop-and-go syndrome. I've seen direct distributors and other distributors do this. I've seen people work very hard to become direct distributor and then all of a sudden don't do anything, and then they lose their way and can't get back at it. Short rests are good. Long rests may be fatal. I'm sure you've all had the experience on the freeway of driving along at a steady speed and having one of these jackrabbit-type drivers pass you going at 80 miles an hour. Then he slows down, and then you keep going, and after a while you pass him. And then he passes you again, and then you pass him, and you just keep going a steady old speed, and the jackrabbit driver is going like that all the time. And late in the afternoon or evening, when you finally pull into a motel or a restaurant, you're there first, and a long time afterward, there he comes. He's been jackrabbiting all the time because he hasn't understood that you get there best by setting a steady speed and then just keep going. I love to ski, but I recognize the fact that I'll never become an expert skier because the experts are skiing all winter long, every day. And I only ski a week or two in the winter. But in your business, when you do it every day at a steady pace, you become an expert, and then you become a winner, like experts in any other field. Choose the peak that you'll climb. Choose the goal, and make certain it's high enough to satisfy you when you reach the top. And then never stop until you get there. Well, it's good to stop once in a while on the way up to take a look at the view. That's good inspiration and motivation. But keep going until you reach the top. One of our most successful persons in the Nutrilite business years ago, Rick Rickenbrode, has said today that the greatest mistake he ever made was that in the business he settled too soon for too little and then found it too difficult to get started again. Choose that highest peak, and then with persistence and steady pace, you'll get where you want to go. A government official in the town of Hong Kong off the coast of China tells the Chinese story, the fable, about the old man who every day on his way home from work had to cross a hill. And that hill bothered him, so every day he'd pick up a stone at the top of the hill and carry it to the bottom of the hill. And asked why he did that, he said, I'm moving this hill. Now, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not even in my son's lifetime, but sometime, sooner or later, if every time we walk this path we carry a stone, the hill will be moved. And that's true. Yeah. Keep on working, keep at it, over and over again. Choose your goal. Then keep at it steadily until you get there. A short rest now and then to catch your breath, to look at the view, fine. And when you reach your highest goal, choose a new one. Success, as Rich has said so well, is a journey, not a destination. Number 7, take every shortcut you can find to the top. And the answer is no. Shortcuts in business oftentimes involve dishonesty and lack of ethics, and or they may involve harm to others. Now, that's not to say shortcuts are never any good, but many of them are not. You've seen one group of shortcutters who tried to imitate Amway, and they invented something called pyramiding, and you saw what a disaster that was to those people who followed that route. We have other people who have tried to distort our sales plan and found again that the ultimate result was disaster for them and for others around them if they continued to follow that shortcut, because there is no shortcut to success. One time I was driving home from Akron, Ohio, and I said, let's take a shortcut. The road goes that way and around the corner, and we could cut across and save some time and save miles if we just head north toward Grand Rapids. And so I did, and I took a good road. It was a great-looking road, headed north to Grand Rapids, but it wasn't too long as I headed north that road was no longer as wide anymore. And after a while, the narrow road became narrower, and eventually it turned to gravel. And then, after a while, the gravel road turned to simply a track. And finally, the track ended in a farmer's yard, a dead end. Yeah, a shortcut. But shortcuts don't always work. Some shortcuts are dead ends. In our little story I told you a while ago about the idea exchange, where Rich and I used to get other distributors together and we'd exchange ideas and give a prize for the best idea, we found a fatal flaw in that concept in the beginning, because after we'd run it a few months, we found out we were exchanging each other's ideas that had not yet been proven. And those ideas oftentimes weren't any good. And so then we put a clincher in that made that a worthwhile program. We said the idea that you bring to the idea exchange must be proven, and you must have evidence that it works. And only then will it qualify to be admitted to the idea exchange. And then we had a worthwhile program, because shortcuts and ideas have to be proven. Follow proven, successful patterns. Amway is not an experiment. We know the patterns of success. And number 8, channel every waking thought to your success. And that, of course, the answer to that is yes. The law of success, thought controls action. Someone once said, no lions are ever caught in mouse traps. To catch lions, you must think in terms of lions, not in terms of mice. Your mind is always creating traps of one kind or another, and what you catch depends on the thinking that you do. It's your thinking that attracts to you what you receive. You can develop nothing that does not first exist in your mind. It's your thinking that's your most precious asset. Nothing outside you can possibly affect you and your fortunes as much as what goes on in your mind. What you think affects your actions. It is scientifically true that as a man thinks, so is he. What the mind can conceive, man can achieve, because mind is all-powerful. A little 5-year-old girl was sitting at the table, and she was concentrating on a drawing, and she was drawing and drawing and drawing, and every once in a while she'd hold it up and look at it, and then she'd put it down, draw some more, scrutinize it again, and put it down, and finally it caught her mother's attention, and her mother said, darling, what in the world are you doing? What are you drawing? And the little girl said, well, Mother, I'm drawing God. Well, the mother was shocked. She said, darling, you can't draw God. She said, no one really knows what he looks like. Oh, she said, they will as soon as I finish. What the mind can conceive, man can achieve. If you will believe it, you will see it. When your mind concentrates on your goal, you'll reach it. But if your mind splits in other directions, you'll not reach your goal. Failure is a dominating theme in society. Many of our institutions are set up to deal only with failure. Think about it. The courts, prisons, bankruptcy, and the insurance business, medicine, the military. All of these are institutions, great institutions in our society, set up to deal with failure. In addition, the daily news is merchandised to us to emphasize failure and crisis and doom and gloom and despair. And we, in order to be successful, have to insulate ourselves from this daily dose of pessimism and bad news and negativism, or otherwise we too may succumb to pessimism. Because remember, the optimist knows that a thing will work, and it does. The pessimist knows that it won't work, and it never does. And both are right, because you see, their minds created the result. And so we have to concentrate on the good news, the positive, the successes, the good things in life. There's lots of good news in the world of Amway. We're sending it to you in the newsgram, in the amagram. Think about that good news in the world of Amway and use that as the focus for your success. And so, to summarize, channel your every waking thought to success. Concentrate all of your efforts on your Amway business. Don't push your lifestyle too far ahead of your income. Keep educating yourself to become an expert in the Amway business. Don't waste your time and money gambling with your Amway earnings and other ventures. Set a steady pace to the top, and don't stop until you've reached your highest goal. Use only proven and honest shortcuts. And again, know and believe that what your mind can conceive, you can achieve. Not one person in this room has yet reached the limit of his abilities in Amway, and that includes Rich and myself. But the doors of opportunity are marked push, not pull. No opportunity, you see, is ever lost. If you drop it, somebody else will pick it up. Somebody else will make it go. And we sincerely believe that each one of you can reach your highest aspirations. We believe in you. We believe in the Amway opportunity as your means of reaching your goal. These few hours that we've spent together have been hours of inspiration to me and to all of you, I'm sure. And we need this. We need inspiration. Someone once put it this way: inspiration is such a fragile thing, just a breeze touching the green foliage of a city park, just a whisper from the soul of a friend, just a line of verse clipped from some forgotten magazine, or a paragraph standing out from among the matter-of-fact chapters of a learned book. Inspiration. Who can say where it is born and why it sometimes leaves us? And who can tell of its reasons for being or for not being? Only this: I think that inspiration comes from the heart of heaven to give the lift of wings and the breath of divine music to those of us who are earthbound. The inspiration that you have received here today, added to the Amway business opportunity, is the most powerful tool for achievement your hands and minds will ever receive. Use this inspiration now. Select a new and higher goal now. A new ideal. Ideals are like the stars, you know. You will not succeed in touching them with your hands, perhaps, but like the sailor on the sea, you do choose them as your guide, and following them, reach your destiny. And so, thank you all for being with us today and for your friendship and your trust.
The preceding presentation and the media on which it is recorded are the copyrighted property of Amway Corporation and may not be reproduced in whole or in part without the expressed written consent of Amway Corporation.